Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a look at something you literally use every single day, your brain's decision-making process. I mean, we all like to think of ourselves as logical, totally rational beings, right? We carefully weigh the pros and cons of everything we do. But the truth is, our everyday choices are filled with these hidden, completely predictable errors. It's kind of like our mental software has a few built-in bugs, and today, we're going to uncover exactly how they work.
Let me just throw a quick question your way. Do you actually know why you buy the things you buy? Like why you ordered that specific coffee this morning, or why you picked one subscription plan over another? You probably believe you're a fully rational actor making independent choices. But what if I told you there are invisible forces pulling the strings and you don't even realize it?
Well, this brings us to the groundbreaking work of behavioral economist Dan Ariely and his book Predictably Irrational. What Ariely reveals is just astonishing. Our systematic errors in judgment, they aren't just random mistakes. They aren't momentary lapses in logic. Instead, they are highly predictable patterns of behavior. And once you learn to spot these patterns, it completely changes how you view your own decisions.
Okay, let's dive into this. Concept number 1, the illusion of choice. See, we naturally assume we evaluate things based on their absolute value, but really, the context surrounding our choices completely manipulates us. Let's look at a real-world example.
Imagine you're staring at this actual advertisement for a subscription to The Economist magazine. You've got 3 choices. Option A is internet only for $59. Option B is print only for $125. And option C is print and internet together for $125. So which one are you picking? Look closely at option B. Who in their right mind would pay $125 for just the print version, when you can get print and internet for the exact same price? It seems absolutely absurd to even offer it, doesn't it?
Well, here's the brilliant trick. That print-only option was never actually meant to be chosen by anyone. It's what behavioral economists call a decoy. The decoy effect is basically an option placed right in front of you with one highly specific purpose, to make another option look vastly superior by comparison. Because that terrible $125 print-only option is sitting right there, it makes the $125 combination deal suddenly look like an absolute steal.
And this whole thing works because, honestly, we humans genuinely struggle with absolute value. How much is a magazine subscription actually worth in a vacuum? Actually, scratch that. It's really hard for our brains to weigh the worth of anything in a vacuum. So instead, we gauge worth based on relative comparisons to whatever is sitting immediately next to it on the shelf. When we face a difficult choice, we just grab onto the easiest, most obvious comparison available.
But hey, relativity doesn't just mess with how we buy magazines. It literally impacts our actual happiness. Take your salary, for instance. You might be perfectly thrilled with the money you earn, right up until the day you find out the colleague sitting next to you makes slightly more. Suddenly, that relative comparison creates intense envy and dissatisfaction, even though your actual income hasn't changed by a single penny.
So that human struggle with relative value opens the door for our next concept, anchors and arbitrary coherence. And to really understand how completely arbitrary numbers can dictate our financial reality, we have to look back at the fascinating story of the Pearl King. The story goes that a guy named James Assell started harvesting Tahitian black pearls in the 1970s. Initially, absolutely no market for them. People thought they were practically worthless, but Assell pulled off a brilliant strategy. He took these worthless pearls, slapped an outrageously high price tag on them, and got them displayed in the window of a luxury jeweler, right alongside high-end diamonds and rubies.
By doing that, Assell permanently anchored those black pearls to opulence. This is a concept called imprinting, or anchoring. Think about baby geese in the wild. They imprint on the first moving object they see and blindly follow it. Well, believe it or not, our brains do the exact same thing with prices. Initial encounters establish these completely arbitrary price points that forever shape our perception of an item's value. Assell literally manufactured a luxury market out of thin air just by setting an anchor. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the large number 2. See, Dan Ariely wanted to test just how totally irrational these anchors could be in an everyday setting. So in this famous MIT study, researchers had students write down the last 2 digits of their social security number, completely random numbers, right? Then they asked those same students to bid actual money on various items, like wine and chocolate.
Just look at the jaw-dropping gap in these average bids. The students who had higher ending social security numbers, like 80 to 99, bid significantly more money for the exact same items than the students with lower digits.
Just having them think about an arbitrary high number instantly skewed their financial decisions immediately afterward. It proves that our initial anchors hold massive power over our wallets, even when it makes absolutely zero logical sense.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because these irrational anchors, they don't just happen once. They snowball over time into what's known as the trap of self-hurting. We love to think we're making fresh choices every single day, but a lot of the time we're just blindly following the herd, and the herd is just our own past choices.
Take the classic Starbucks example to see how this self-hurting cycle works. You might be used to paying $1 for standard coffee somewhere else. But one day you treat yourself, step into a fancy coffee shop, and drop $4. Boom, you've just accepted a new, higher anchor. The next time you walk by, you remember you liked it, so you buy it again. Suddenly, it's a habit. You're spending way more without ever stopping to question if it's actually worth the price anymore.
Our irrationality ultimately peaks with the cost of zero cost. The whole concept of free just completely short-circuits our logic. When something is free, we totally forget about the downsides. We'll stand in the freezing rain for 45 minutes just for a free stale cookie, or buy a bunch of stuff we definitely don't need just to trigger free shipping. Zero cost isn't just a price point. It's an emotional hot button that makes us completely abandon reason.
So the crucial point is, we need to gently pump the brakes and ask a big question here, a critical perspective. Is all human behavior dictated only by sneaky decoys and arbitrary anchors? Are we just completely helpless robots? To give you the full picture in this explainer, we have to impartially look at the academic critique of these ideas.
As you can see in this critical analysis, referencing the work of Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman, some argue that relying too heavily on these relativity tricks might oversimplify things. The critique suggests that if we only focus on the decoys and the anchors, we completely overlook the intrinsic motivations, the personal values, and the rational processes that still fundamentally drive human behavior.
It's really important to maintain a multifaceted view of choice here. Yes, anchors and decoys certainly influence us. There is no denying the data Ariely presents. But your personal values still matter deeply. Societal influences play a massive role, and our rational processes often adapt when the stakes of a scenario change. So while the behavioral bugs highlighted in Predictably Irrational are incredibly real, human decision-making is just too complex to be boiled down solely to initial biases. And this brilliantly illustrates our final concept, taking back control. Because once you actually understand how your brain takes these cognitive shortcuts, you can start outsmarting them. You absolutely do not have to be a victim of your own psychological bugs.
Here are some clear, actionable strategies for managing relativity. First, recognize your arbitrary anchors. Just stop and ask yourself, why am I willing to pay this much? Did I just adopt this price out of habit? Second, take control of the context of your decisions. Limit your exposure to toxic comparisons that just breed envy. And third, broaden your perspective. When you're making a choice, zoom out. Look at the absolute value of what you're getting, not just how it compares to the shiny decoy placed right next to it.
So I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought today. Take a quick second and look back at your last 3 purchases. Go on, really think about them. Were you truly making a calculated, independent, rational choice? Or were you just blindly following a decoy planted right in front of you? The hidden forces are everywhere, but now you have the framework to spot them. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the choices you make.